What's up, everybody? This is Mr. Hulsey. This is lesson 4.6 in the IED curriculum. We're still on Inventor modeling, 3D modeling. So we're doing geometric constraints today. Hopefully at this point you know all of the constraints. I've gone over them in class and the difference between geometric and dimensional constraints. A dimensional constraint is where we put two lines, a certain distance away from each other, or one line the length of it. So if I say these two lines are 12 inches apart, then they will stay 12 inches apart whether I turn them or make them, this way or whatever. But if I say I want them to have a certain shape, like perpendicular, that's a geometric constraint. Now you can do that with a dimensional constraint, say that the angle between them is 90 degrees. It's the same thing, but you'll find that one is better than the other in certain circumstances. So I just want to add these geometric constraints as tools to your tool belt. So here they are. We're going to use all 12 of them except for smooth constraints. We're actually going to use 11. Coincident constraint is connecting two lines together. Collinear, same line. Concentric, same. Centric, center. Fix is fixed in space. Parallel and perpendicular, you know those. Horizontal, vertical, you know those. Tangent is when a curve is smooth onto a straight line. That's why I don't like smooth, because it's really used just for splines. We don't really use splines. Symmetric, symmetric across the center line, and equal size or equal length. Okay, so on Inventor, you want a new project like always. You want a new project like always, new single user project. I'm going to browse to my my documents, but you do not need to do this on your PC. On this PC, don't do that. Scroll down on this PC until you see your H drive. I don't have an H drive, but you choose your H drive, Inventor projects, a new folder here, make it A4.6, geometric constraints, and then instead of FML, we want that to be your first, middle, last initials. So that's the folder. We want that project to have the same name as the folder. We'll finish and hit done. And then actually, since this is the only part we're making in this whole project, we can make the name of the project the same as the name of the folder and the project file. Excuse me, we can make the name of the part the same as the name of the folder and the name of the project. Okay, that's some good stalling there. And again, we want to save and save as soon as you get into the part file. So whenever this is done loading, I'll Control S. Sometimes Control S doesn't work as soon as you open something up, but I'll try it. Let's see. Not responding. This is a good reminder. Not blend. I don't want it to blend. This is a good reminder of why you need to save often, because Inventor is not that reliable. So save, yeah, Control S is not working right now. File, save as. And again, same exact name is fine. Just don't do IPJ, because then it's going to be IPJ.ipt, which will be confusing and ugly. So as soon as you got it named correctly, let's start a new 2D sketch. Since we're doing this object here, this is LT, that's kind of a logo or a keychain or something. We can do that on the bottom, the XZ plane. Oops, I think I clicked and dragged it instead of just clicking it singularly. My computer's going real slow, so that might be an error there. So next I want to create a line. I want to create a line, just kind of going up. I do want this to be vertical, but you'll see it snaps and then adds a constraint. I'll show you that you can add that constraints later. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to add the vertical constraint, and look at this hint down here. It says select line, ellipse, axis, or first point. You can make a point horizontal or vertical compared to another point in the same horizontal or vertical line with each other. But we just want this line itself to be vertical. Oh no, look, it looks horizontal, but it says that it's vertical. I know that that's the vertical constraint that I just selected. But look, you see over here at top is sideways. So let's turn that. Okay, now that top is not sideways, the words, we know that horizontal is horizontal, vertical is vertical. It's not turned. So that was a vertical constraint we added. Let's do another line. This time I'll show you, you can snap to the up direction, and that constraint is already given to you. I'm not exactly sure what constraints I have, so I like to use this tool right here. This is show all constraints. If you're a keyboard whiz, you like F8 instead of clicking down here. F9 is what takes it off. It's not an F8 toggle. You have to do F8, then F9 to take them off. So you see my two lines here have vertical constraints, and the only other constraint down here is the project geometry. That means the center point is projected into the sketch, and you can use it even though it belongs to other sketches or other features in the model. If you accidentally delete your center point and you want to add a line or something straight to it, it's hard to get it right on 0, 0. So the best thing to do is go back and project that geometry from the origin to the center point into your sketch. And again, you have to sometimes click F8 or select F8, excuse me, F9, then F8, toggle that on and off, show all constraints, and then it'll show up and go back to normal. So then I want coincident constraints, 2 lines connected. I can do that directly by clicking when it shows up as a green point. Or I could do it later, like say I want a line going down here, and then I change my mind. I was going to do a curve here. I changed my mind. I actually want those connected. I can do coincident constraint here and here. Okay, now they're connected. And then you can see the kinds of degrees of freedom I have here. I can move this line around, but I can't do that if I select this point. It'll just slide up and down because that line is vertical. The degrees of freedom can be shown by clicking this button here. Unfortunately, there's not a hotkey, but you can see I can go in and out with this line, this curve. I can go curve up and down. I can move all of these points left and right, except for this midpoint here. I can only move that midpoint side to side. That kind of gets messy, so I like to turn that off. But if you're ever interested in what degrees of freedom you have, you can add those there. So I do want those to be parallel to each other. Don't get parallel and equals confused. I want these to be parallel to each other. Ding ding. And then you know what? I actually do want them horizontal. There are a number of ways to do this. The one I'm going to use right now is perpendicular here and here. This curve is perpendicular to this curve, and of course, Inventor is going slow on me right now. Let's just say okay, and then come back to it. Oh, it wasn't going slow. I chose the wrong one. That's not perpendicular. This one is. So here and here, it wasn't doing that because that's already coincident, those 2 lines. So let's say I want this to be horizontal just to doubly make sure. But look, this error shows up. Adding this constraint will over constrain the sketch, and that's a very important error that shows up. If you ever see that, or something like it, you've got to know that you're trying to tell Inventor the same exact thing twice. Because if this line is vertical, this line is perpendicular to that line, and this line is parallel to this line, then we know that this has to already be horizontal. If you tell it this again, it'll go on there twice. Sometimes it'll let you, but fortunately it's not letting us because otherwise it would break. So let's add an arc here. And oh, look, it already snapped to tangent. That's what I'm going to add later. And let's add an arc here. Let's do it, yeah, sort of like that. And hopefully my demonstration will work. If not, I'll just pull it out a little bit. Yeah, I want it to be sort of like that. For now, you don't have to. Let's do this tangent up here and this tangent here. That didn't change very much. What if you do this tangent right here? Oh no, it went away. That's what I was trying to demonstrate. Let me Control Z and Control Y back and forth so I can show you what happens. So sometimes in order for this line to be tangent with this line, it could go out, curve around and out, or it could just be flat and inside. So what Inventor does is it makes an assumption. If it's closer to being flat, it'll assume that that's what you want when you add a tangent constraint. If it's closer to being bulbous and out, it'll assume that's what you want when you add the tangent constraint. So let's make that a pretty easy assumption for Inventor to make, and let's add the tangent constraint there. Now it's what we want. Let's say okay then. All right, so now we have a lot of freedom here. We can move this line up and down. Be careful not to actually grab these constraint icons, and make sure you're grabbing the line that you actually want to grab, or the point. By the way, a point shows up whenever you hover over the point. It shows up as either a line or those icons for coincident. In order to grab the point, you have to make sure that it's highlighted with a little white circle. Okay, so I can move a bunch of stuff around, but I want to make sure that when I'm constraining or when I'm moving other things around, I want to make sure that one thing is locked in. So that's what fix is for. I can fix different parts of my my shape. If I like where they're at, or if I like how big they are, I can just fix them right there. Next, I want these 2 arcs to be equal, which means the thickness of my 2 legs of the L are going to be equal. But I want this to be a little bit taller. See how it doesn't move all around whenever I have that? That's what the fix is for. Okay, next, let's move on. Oops, I accidentally went out of my sketch. Beware. A lot of people like to start a 2D sketch every single time. That'll create a new sketch. If I do that, even if I'm on the same plane and then I try to move my stuff around, it won't move because that belongs to sketch 1. See how I hover over sketch 1 and that flashes white? Sketch 2 has nothing in it. So be careful not to start a new 2D sketch every single time. Let me delete that sketch 2. But instead, double click or right click and edit sketch on a sketch that you already have if you accidentally go out of it. So here's our L. Now I kind of want a T that's going up this way, and I want those to have these goofy looking arcs coming from here because I want to do a concentric constraint on those, but let's make them goofy right now. Okay, so concentric means same center. I want that line and that curve and that curve to have the same center. There we go. And it did a weird thing here. That's because I can just move this line up. It has a lot of freedom. Let's say I want that line to be flat. Let's make it horizontal. Now we can use our horizontal constraint. But I want it to be on the same level as this line here. So this is a good use of my collinear constraint, same line. So two line segments are going to lie on the same line from each other. By the way, that's a really nice thing that shows up here, that tooltip if you hover over. It also allows you to say press F1 for more help. So you basically have to memorize nothing or almost nothing on Inventor. It'll give you a lot of hints as you're working with it. So now I want a big weird looking T thing here, but if I make everything perpendicular as I go, I think it should connect all the way around. Perpendicular as I go. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, right there. Okay. It did not quite make it perpendicular all the way. I think because this line is a little bit bigger than that line, but let's just say that is perpendicular with that. Easy fix. The last constraint we're going to add here is this symmetric. It's kind of like a mirror, but after you already have parts on, or sketches and lines on. So let's make a line going down from the midpoint. I see how I clicked the green dot right there. That's a midpoint. I want to make that line a construction line. So select the line and then select construction. Be careful because a lot of times people leave this on. You want to take that off. Take all this off whenever you're adding more lines to a sketch. Otherwise, it'll look really funny. So let's add this symmetric constraint here. And it tells you exactly how to do it. 1 and then 2 and then 3 is the midline. Also, this hint down here says select first sketch element, select second sketch element, select a symmetry line. Boom. And now those two lines have symmetry. If I were to click and drag this weird thing, it would pull those out at the same time. And that's about it. The last thing you need to do is add text of your name. Remember that whenever you type in your name or anything in text, it might show up weird. So what you need to do is flip it like that. You can click and drag the letters to move them. And that's about the size that I want. As long as I can see in your screenshot that you've got all of those 11 constraints there, it should be good. If you do want to change the text size, double click on the text. You have to highlight the entire thing, and then you can change the text size like that. Okay, so that's about it. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a good one.